Ba'alei Tshuva, the Jewish who return to Judaism. They can be considered late beginners. A Jew without Judaism have not identity. Ben Yehuda find when he was already 28 years old that he is a Jew. Let's see what is the unique experience in the life of Ben Yehuda. Ben Yehuda, please tell me something about you.
I was born in Egypt, Cairo, Egypt in 1956, and in 1949. And in 56, NASA asked us to leave. Not just Jews, everybody. In those days, I didn't know I was Jewish.
You was 6 years old?
I was about 6 years old, yeah. So we left, and he confiscated everything. He took everybody's possessions and wealth and everything and gave it to the Egyptians. And in 56, I left to go to Switzerland. And I was in Switzerland for about 3 years in the mountains. We stayed in a home there. My parents at that time divorced, and my sister and I were in this boarding home with other children, also probably some of them from Egypt, and we were there for about 3 years. And then in the age of about 9, I went to England, and there I studied for 10 years, also in boarding schools. And that's where I really learned to speak English. My mother tongue is French. And so I was in England for about 10 years. Then I met my wife a few years later. I went to the Greek islands. I used to go there for the summer holidays because my father's a Greek. And my mother's Jewish, but I didn't know until I was 27 that I was Jewish. So I met my wife at the age of 21. She was 19.
A Jew?
No, she wasn't Jewish. On a Greek island. Soon after we were married, and we went traveling because I was studying advertising at the time to be an artist in advertising. But at the age of 21, I decided that I didn't want to use my skill to trick people to buy things that were not good for them, in the commercial business. I became very idealistic. I started studying mystical books, traditional books, but I didn't ever come across anything on Judaism. So I knew a lot about Buddhism and Hinduism and yoga and this and that and the other, and I was very interested with it. And so I decided I wanted to go to travel to India because that's where I could learn more. So me and my wife traveled overland to India from, I think we were back in London. So from London we went all the way down to Greece, to Istanbul. From Istanbul we went overland through Afghanistan and Iran, and then we went to Pakistan and then into India. And we remained in India for many months. My wife was studying Tibetan Buddhism, and I was studying different yogas in southern India. And so for a while we were separated because she was in the north, I was in the south. And I lost contact with her. And as everybody knows, in India there's a lot of people. There's maybe a billion people. So I had to find my wife in a billion people. And luckily I asked a few people, in those days they were called hippies, if they knew of an Australian girl or had seen of one maybe in an ashram or in a Buddhist monastery. And luckily somebody had said to me, yes, there's somebody I think that fits her description in Calcutta. I was in Bombay. I had $200, and the plane fare from Bombay to Calcutta was $200, which would mean that I would be in India with no money. And the plan was to make it all the way to Australia together. But I heard she was sick. So I had the choice of taking the plane and finding her in Calcutta, which has a population of maybe 18 million people. So I had the choice of taking a train from Bombay to Calcutta, which in those days takes 5 days, and you have to stand all the way, and by the time you get there you're probably very sick. So I just took the plane and I arrived in Calcutta, and I asked around, and luckily after about a day I found her. And she was sick, and quite sick in fact, and so I telegrammed her father in Australia, telling him that he should send us a plane ticket to get us out of India because we had no money left. So he sent one plane ticket. He didn't send two, because he was angry with me that I had taken his daughter all across the world and now she was very sick and everything. So she flew out.
What's happened when you find that he sent you only one ticket?
So then I had to find a way to get to Australia, and I went all the way to Singapore. I met somebody who felt sorry for me, and we went to Singapore, and he was going to help me to get to Australia, and he disappeared after a week or so. So I was there for 3 weeks trying to get on a boat to go to Australia. I went on different boats to speak to the captain, but nothing. So finally my father-in-law felt sorry for me, I think, because he sent me a ticket, and then I went to Australia.
So what's happened after that?
And then we lived in Australia for 2 years, and our first child, our daughter Tara, was born. And
excuse me, what you did in Australia?
First I was working as a labourer building houses, helping to mix cement, very simple work. And I worked for a while in the television industry as a painter for backdrops. And then I finally got involved in doing posters, children's posters, which were sold on the streets, and that went very, very well. So in the end I had to have 6 or 7 people working for me, and I made a lot of money. And then I left Australia and went back to India, and then to Greece, and then finally to Israel.
Why you come in Israel?
Just to visit. Just because I was interested, you know, I didn't know I was Jewish, so we thought, Jesus was born there, maybe it's a nice place, kibbutzim, moshavim, let's go there to look. Because we were not far away, we were in Italy at the time. So we went.
With the child?
Yeah, with our daughter, and on a big bus. We had a big bus that was actually a home. It had a few beds, a bathroom, everything, and we put it on the boat in Greece, and then went to Haifa, 3-day journey, and arrived in Israel, traveled all over Israel, to the south, to the north, to the center, but didn't like it. Didn't like Israel. And after a week we decided to leave. And then we met somebody who came into our bus and said, you have to go people there. So we thought, okay, we'll go for an hour.
Where is located?
It's Moshav Modim. It's in between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. And so instead of staying for an hour or two, we ended up staying 2 months. And that's where I found out I was Jewish.
How? Tell me the time. How you find it?
Well, the interesting thing was I was born in Egypt, and I found out a week before Pesach, which is the whole story of going out of Egypt. A week before Pesach, somebody asked me, are you Jewish? I said, no, I had a Greek name. And they said, are you sure you're not Jewish? I said, yes, I'm sure. So they asked me, what's your mother's name? And I said, Elian Levi. They said, Levi is a Jewish name. And I remember it was so funny because he said to me, why don't you stay longer because Pesach's coming? And I said, who's he? I thought it was a person. I thought it was a person. And anyway, so we stayed 2 months, and I experienced my first Shabbat there. And when I heard the Nigunim of Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach for the first time, I knew in my heart that I'd heard them a long, long time ago in another life. They were all. It was just so good to hear them again.
So how do you find you are a Jew?
Well, when I was asked, you know, what's your mother's name? And I said Elian Levi. They said Levi is a Jewish name, and you're Jewish from your mother's side. So I asked my mother. I tell